We live in a time where design and technology touch every aspect of our lives. But where did it all come from? Who designed it? How was it built and brought to market? What will it look like in a year, 2 years, 100 years? From the phones and smartwatches that help us in our day-to-day to the cutting-edge spaceships and 3D printers that are leading us into the future, modern design is constantly shaping the way we work, communicate, problem solve, and play. And every new design, big or small, starts with an idea and a bill of materials. I'm Magenta Strongheart, and this is The Bomb, where we talk to leading innovators in the tech world and celebrate the transformational power of design. Today on the show, we're going to take a look back over the last 4 months of The Bomb podcast and revisit some of our favorite moments. From Jayy Moss's dedication to accessibility and representation in the hardware community, on through Kate McAndrew's focus on building and investing in the brightest teams, to Cory Grosser's power to evoke a feeling through the design of space. Today, I'll guide you through our first 15 episodes so that if you're new to the show, you can find the perfect place to start, or if you just want to refresh, you can revisit some of the inspirational and fascinating conversations we've had. A theme that comes up again and again is the importance of open source and idea sharing. When we work together and share our methods, we learn from each other, expand on one another's work, and become capable of bigger and bolder solutions. All of our guests are creators, innovators, and designers with unique perspectives that can make us better at what we do, and in turn, make the world a better place. Let's start with our very first episode where we talk to the brilliant Jayy Moss, a self-taught roboticist from Compton and the technical content creator at DigiKey.
When I was growing up, I didn't see many people in science who looked like me. I grew up with Bill Nye and what was happening on PBS Kids.
I think we definitely have to do a little Bill Nye, the science guy. It's got to happen.
Yeah, it was on 3:30.
But yeah.
I remember the whole time slot. It was a whole thing for me. So I used to watch that and stuff. So one of my main goals is, and I've told Adam Savage this too, is like my goal is to be the Black version of him when I get to that level for kids and people to see me, or someone who looks like them doing what I do. The maker community, they've just been always welcoming. Like I've never felt as welcomed in I don't think my entire life as I felt as welcome in the maker community. I could literally post anything and just say whatever, or I need help on Twitter or whatever. And then people are just like, yeah, we'll help you. And there's no judgment, there's no anything. They're just like, here's the knowledge for you to do the thing that you want to do. If you need any help, you can contact us or blah, blah, blah. And I have yet to find a similar community that just welcoming in general.
Jay has found amazing support in the maker community, and now he's made it his mission to pass that support on to other inventors. Another person committed to that mission is Emily Pillaton-Lamb, the founder and executive director of the nonprofit Girls Garage in Berkeley, California, where she helps thousands of young girls learn how to use power tools, weld, and build projects for their communities. I talked to her in episode 9.
More than anything, and really on a daily basis, if you were to walk into Girls Garage, it feels like a really inviting, beautiful, and creative space led by women and non-binary professionals and a pretty incredible group of young people who show up to build projects that are meaningful to them and that are meaningful to their community, that actually live in the world and serve other people in the community. Year after year, the things that keep me going are, number one, forever and always, the young people that I get to work with. There are so many students that have come to Girls Garage who I've known from age 9 to 18, or now they're 19 or 20. And I was talking to a teacher friend of mine who teaches 9th grade, and she said, I don't even get to experience that because I have a kid for 1 year and then they move on. I don't ever get to see a student year after year after year after year. And it occurred to me that it is such a privilege.
For young folks outside of Northern California who want to learn to build things, there's always Tindy, the online makerspace that's basically like Etsy but for electronics. And we spoke to the person running the show, a self-described Jill of trades named Jasmine Brackett. When I talked to her in episode 14, she told me all about some of the most popular things you can find on Tindy right now. A while back, you had told me, I think one of the top sellers was a little sensor for plants, for monitoring watering for plants. There's things like that. There's lots of kits. I believe there's some cool badges and pins that people can put together just to give folks an idea of what kinds of products they could find on Tindy.
Lots of kits to do with home automation or with Arduino or Raspberry Pi. There's a lot of hats and shields and add-ons in terms of sensors and breakout boards, things to do with energy monitoring or to do with power. There's people are making tools for testing LEDs or USB cords or like other types of things like that as well. Drones are very popular as well, and like little remote control vehicle type things, retro computing stuff, so older style computers, or people have been either reconditioning old parts, or if there's now, nobody's really making the hardware or the replacement parts for these things, people have been remaking those and reverse engineering those. And so that's been very interesting to see. And then also there's a lot of sound and MIDI stuff. And that's kind of its own little category. It's quite with circuit bending and all that kind of thing. But those products tend to be pretty high quality, very well thought out. I mean, and there's lots of also beginner kits type stuff to do with STEM. So if you're an educator or a parent and you want to find small projects for younger people to get involved, to like learn about different types of electronics, and that's also something you can find on Tindy.
Yeah, check out Tindy, educators for sure. Awesome tools there. Over and over, we heard from these innovators that the community is here to help, and multidisciplinary designer Sophie Wong continues to embody that concept. After starting her career in graphic design, Sophie now specializes in designing wearable technology for creative expression. I talked to her for episode 2.
I've definitely gained so much from other people who have made their processes available through writing up their documentation, sharing the learnings that they went through in their projects, writing up tutorials or documenting their work on places like Hackaday, Instructables, all those places where you can post tutorials. It pushes all of us forward because you can look at communities like the 3D printing community and like you'll see that where that community started out and where they are now, it's incredible the work that comes out of there. And same thing with sewing, like people sharing information, sharing techniques, and sharing resources pushes the community to a place where you couldn't go if you were just an individual. And especially with electronics, like making these things available to people, the fact that you can just go and buy a microcontroller, plug it into your computer and program it. I mean, I would not be able to do that if it wasn't for a lot of other people explaining to me how to do that, So I think it's a passion for me to just make sure that everything I'm doing is out there for other people to learn, because I know it's going to come back to me. Like I know that someone's going to see something that I did and have a better idea and figure it out, work it out, make it happen, and then put it out there. And then I'll see it and I'll be like, oh my God, I never thought of that. Mm-hmm. And then just the friends that I've made at Maker Faire and other maker events, super conference, like places where you're around like-minded people who are in a similar pathway, who you feel like, they're going to understand your struggles because they've been there too. Having that is so, so valuable.
This is a historic time to be in the world of design and technology. The potential for collaboration and progress is unparalleled. Kate McAndrew, co-founder and general partner of Baukunst, which is a collective of creative technologists, is a prime example, and I talked to her in episode 4.
Starting my own firm was always the dream. Mm-hmm. And so Baukunst for me is that firm. And it's like such a privilege and such, for me, a moment in time to kind of go back to kind of my upbringing. There's never been a time in history other than now where a woman could control this amount of capital and who could have the capacity to find others with dreams and skills and vision and to say, yes, you, right? And for me, like, that's what this work is about. And it's about, using the gifts that I have, the potential that I have to empower those around me and to build things that are meaningful.
One of the most meaningful things we can work on is safeguarding the planet for future generations and using our skills to fight climate change. It's work that we'll be doing for the rest of our lives and beyond. When I talked to inventor, conservationist, and educator Cesar Jungharada in episode 10, he described that idea in a really relatable way.
The work is never done. Like there's always more to do. Like, for example, let's say something very practical. Like, let's say a lot of people work on, say, plastic cleanup. They go to the beach, and a lot of people are getting involved with that, and that's fantastic. But oftentimes, a lot of people who participate, they only participate once or twice because they go to the beach, they clean it up, and they know that the next day it's going to be the same. Like the ocean is going to keep carrying all this trash that we just throw in it because we treat the ocean like a garbage dump. So the way I think about it is more like the relationship you have with nature, like a relationship with like a member of your family. That's really the way I think about it. It's like this person, or the ocean in my case, is basically, it's always going to be here, and there's always going to be problems. It's like you're like your weird uncle, your weird auntie. Like there's always going to be something weird about it, and but they're also part of your family, so you have just to deal with it. You can be like appalled and like, what are you saying, and being upset about it, or like even giving up on them. But at the end of the day, then you can decide, like, am I going to be upset all the time, or am I going to be happy and live a happy life and trying to do my best about what is given to me. And so that's how I feel basically about like the ocean and environment, and dealing with greed and how we treat each other and the environment. It's because of my I guess my father's tradition. They're Shinto, so it's a sect of Buddhism, which is also like based about acceptance and celebration of life, and that's just how we're supposed to run our days. It's just life is suffering, and life is hard, and we're in this together, and we're going to die, but that's okay. So like, as we are alive, we make the most of every day, and it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, you're still a member of the community, and you contribute, you do your best every day.
In addition to founding Maker Bay, a Hong Kong network of innovation centers, Cesar is also the founder and CEO of the ocean robotics startup Scoutbots, which develops ocean sensors and technology to explore and protect the oceans. That's just one way an engineer's skill set can be used to combat climate change. But regardless of what's in your toolbox, there's always a way to help. Take it from Shaw Selby, founder of Conservify and managing director at FieldKit, who joined me for episode 7. How do you feel like, if the average person is overwhelmed by the climate crisis and what they can do to be involved, what would you say is the most effective way to help if you feel passionate about, trying to make a difference?
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is something I've talked about before because I feel very strongly about this, but I think that there is a space for every single person out there to help with these sorts of movements, right? And it's always very hard. When I first started learning about conservation as an engineer, I felt like I couldn't really do anything because I was an engineer, right? I wasn't a wildlife biologist or an ecologist or anything like that. And so it felt like I was very out of place. But through that process, as I was exploring that a little bit more, I found ways in that, my skill set, my specific skill set of engineering could be applied to help in these bigger issues. And I think that regardless of what your own individual skill set is, that you can find ways to help. So you can be a graphic designer or a writer or whatever. And there's organizations and people out there that are just dying for those sorts of skills. I'm a big believer in volunteering because I've done a lot of it in my life. And that's how I started all of this work, was volunteering at first. And so I think, if you're okay with volunteering, find an organization that's doing good work that you really appreciate, and volunteer your time to try and help them. Like, if you're an artist, draw things for them, right? I mean, whatever it is, use your skill to try and help that movement move forward. And that's a very easy way for you to kind of contribute to that without feeling out of place, right? And I guarantee there's going to be people in that area that are looking for that sort of skill set that you have. I think that's an easy way to do it, but definitely learn about the issue before you jump into it. There's a lot of issues in the environmental space that people get really excited about that turn out that they're like not really the real issue out there. They're just like what
Something
a lot of
trendy.
Yeah, very trendy, or it's a big social media push around this sort of thing, when there's much bigger problems out there that we need to address that just maybe don't sound as flashy. And so like education about that first and foremost is really important. Yeah.
Recently, National Geographic hired Shah and his company to help scientists and conservationists monitor water in the Amazon forest, watch the behaviorisms of lowland gorillas in Congo, and so much more, which is just so cool. Another person I spoke to doing great community-driven work is Jason Knight, the founder of Recycled Plastic Skateboard Deck, a researcher for precious plastic and technical consultant for Need Lab. We spent episodes 5 and 6 with both him and Samira Chukapali Holmes talking about the value of open source technology in building climate crisis resiliency.
Like you look at examples like people working in the precious plastic community, like everything is online for free, but everyone's days are still more than full with stuff to do. It just means you can work on other more important stuff like improving, like developing. I also think it's, especially when it comes to sustainability, it's the only way we can work fast enough as like a species to be able to tackle the problem quick enough to actually solve it. It's like if you have everyone keeps everything they learn like secret and patented and private, then you have linear development. But if everyone shares everything, then you have exponential development. And this is to kind of deal with the how quick the sustainability problem is going. We need this. There's no other choice. So my way of working is saying like there is no other way other than to do this to fix the problem fast enough.
Sitting next to Jason in this interview is Samira, the founder and director of Need Lab, which she describes as an organization which aims to solve problems related to habitat and urban resilience in cities and rural communities. A core ideology of their work is think global, act local. Here she is.
We, I think, genuinely can, our generation, because all our stories are informed by what our parents went through. And we're like, my parents did this so I could have a good life. And then all of us in society are facing similar or more complex issues with the world getting more diverse and more excluding. And I feel it's time we don't pass that on to the next generation and truly take a serious look at it and fix it, so that our kids and the next generation are not like, my parents suffered, well, I have to as well, and this is my battle. There will be new challenges coming, but it shouldn't be the same issues.
Mm-hmm. In addition to her work at Need Lab, Samira is an architect, and she approaches building in a unique way.
I think I took the non-traditional path of being open source, which is still very new in the architecture industry, and for this reason, that we need opinions from everyone. We need participation through sharing of opinions. The changes people make based on the behavior, the way they live, and the things they want to make their lives comfortable is good feedback for the design, because it's going to make our world and the cities we live in much better every day, and for every single person who lives in it. So open sourcing something is more powerful in architecture, because you get input, you get feedback. Definitely you have to follow the safety guidelines of bylaws, of regulations in terms of materials or dimensions and all of that. With the restrictions and law, you learn so much more. So I think more architecture should be open sourced, and the participatory way is very beneficial for the change.
Open source may be relatively uncommon in architecture now, but it provides a great pathway to innovation. I spoke to product designer, interior architect, and art director Cory Grosser for episode 15, and I loved how he distinguished between design and invention. How do you feel when it comes to your own work and also what you're kind of teaching your students about kind of locking things up versus sharing, or what are the values or pros and cons of these different sides of things?
We have to ask ourselves, is design and innovation the same thing, right? And it could at times be, like, design and innovation can be the same, but often they're very different, right? And let me give an example. When you go out to a great restaurant, right? Or you want to like try this amazing new chef. The chef is using food, the same ingredients, right? But they're put together in a different way. That's a very different conversation than a chef that's creating new food, right? So, and maybe people won't always enjoy created food, right? It's not always appealing, right? And so if sometimes, like for me personally, I like to think of myself in parallel to a chef, is that, okay, well, if I'm designing a chair, we know what a chair is. There's actually the chair functions so you can sit, right? There's no true innovation outside of a mechanism or maybe a manufacturing innovation. So what a chair becomes, the design of a chair becomes, is it becomes about putting ingredients together in a way that's different and pleasing and maybe feels fresh. In that sense, you know, I think that design and innovation aren't exactly the same. Now, if we're talking about innovations, of course, it's important to protect your ideas. But I think in the design world, design is not always an innovation, right? And I think it's an important distinction to make. And I think for young designers, I would suggest that they're not afraid of their idea being taken. If you're a painter and you're getting your career going, you're not worried about your painting getting copied. Right? You're creating to create, and then you're hoping people enjoy it. And I would say for a young designer, approach your work the same way. Like, think about it as, I like to think of design as a gift, right? As like something that if you do it well and someone uses it, you've given them a gift, right? And so that's a nice way to think about how protective someone may or may not want to be about their idea.
Besides being protective of our best ideas, sometimes we're especially protective of our failures, or at least protective of the hiccups along the way to our best work. I talked to president and co-founder of OpenMV and lead embedded systems engineer at Embark Trucks, Kwabena Ajuman, for episode 3, and he shared his story about his first run of OpenMV cams.
We had to get through a big fiasco, which was the manufacturing runs that were done for the first 1,000 OpenMV cams, the OpenMV cam version 2. The version 1 never went, it never really saw the light of day. It was about 100 units produced. The way we were able to get through that was that we actually shared our current status with everybody. We made sure to let people know what was going on, and then we put extra effort into improving the product to make it better than it was.
So hopefully people were getting something even better than what they'd originally signed up for.
Yeah.
That's clever and makes sense.
And I've seen this at play so many times. You know, even for OpenMV, we actually started out with multiple co-founders, and when things got tough, not everyone stayed around, which made it challenging. That's a good way of talking about things failing forward. I mean, what that comes down to is recognizing that there's going to be situations that you can't control and things that are going to get a little bit dicey. And there's a few different ways you can approach that. You can say, okay, I'm going to, hit the eject button and get out of Dodge, or I'm going to lean in and fix the problem.
Many engineers are problem solvers at heart, but not always experts with the business side of things. For episode 8, I talked to the editor-in-chief of Hackaday, Elliot Williams.
I don't have as much insight on the big business side of things as a lot of other people do. Frankly, I'm super interested in seeing kind of the little projects get bigged up, and we do see a lot of that, like actually on Tindy a lot, which is another our sister website, Tindy. But on Tindy we see a lot of really cool projects that then people can get made themselves and sell to you, and that's phenomenally powerful these days. That a couple people plus the right tools plus then the right commercial resources, getting your PCBs made, being able to order the parts and, get them assembled when needed, et cetera, can turn, one person or a couple people into a company making interesting stuff and selling it. And the stuff, again, because of the way I'm interested in these kind of quirkier niche projects more than I am the stuff that ends up necessarily becoming a big business. I don't even know if we've said it yet, but I/O kind of came out of the Hackaday Prize as a place for people who want to enter the Hackaday Prize to put up their projects. It's one of the things we always look for when we're judging projects for, our little contests or for the Hackaday Prize, is how well is this thing documented? How reproducible is it? Is everything open, and could someone build this if they wanted to? And that's super important to us too. And it's not always the easiest, especially when you're really just trying to get the thing to work, to then say, I gotta go and take good photos and write up how I did this. And so it's good to have a little bit of an incentive, whether it's, the kind of the carrot of community feedback, or whether it's money from one of our prizes, or whatever it takes. We want to get, or even just a write-up in Hackaday.
Hackaday prizes, grants, or the right marketing plan can provide the funding needed to get an idea off the ground. And we can't talk about funding without mentioning cryptocurrency. Has crypto really revolutionized money in the way we thought it could?
The kind of messaging that proponents to crypto want to put out there is about it opening up accessibility, decentralizing. I think it's only the beginning still, but yeah, I don't know if I buy that it will really open up access to all these communities.
I would agree with that. I think we share a lot of the same perspectives, but yeah, I think in my work at Helium, I am very cognizant of okay, what grants are we giving to which people? Are we giving grants to people who live in the global north to build infrastructure and own that infrastructure in the global south? Yeah. We don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. There are all of these sort of sensitivities, but I think we kind of just need to be real about a lot of the crypto space and say this is not necessarily a revolution as a lot of people think it is, because it's not a social revolution, mm-hmm. But it's more an evolution of corporate governance, or right. which is really just a slight change. But for things like Helium, it does seem like you could just look at the actual progress and the traction that this community has built across the globe, and that is very exciting. But I think we just need to find ways to make it actually accessible and decentralized, because as soon as something gets hot or exciting, of course, people with existing resources are going to hop on board. Right. So yeah, it's a tricky area.
That's Clarissa Redwine, the Grants Program Manager at Helium, where she's leading the charge in creating a decentralized telecom. You can hear our full conversation in episode 13. The last 4 months have been so full of inspiring and engaging conversations, and I can't wait to see what our next season brings. Maybe more exploration about the not-so-basic importance of measurement in science that mechanical systems engineer Marco Terabini reminded us of in episode 11. Here he is. You describe yourself as a measurements man. Why is measurement so important?
Lord Kelvin, that was much more important than anybody else for science, was stating that there's no science without measurement, no? Just imagine of not being able of measuring the time. You cannot even fix an appointment, no? Mm-hmm. In the industry, probably the data is now getting more relevance than the products themselves, no? So up to 10 years ago, data had no value. If you think nowadays about what's important in a business, with numbers, you can describe almost everything. And having data about people makes you aware of what they need. Having data about machine makes you aware of when you need to change something, if you need to replace something. Yeah. So that's all about measurement.
You cannot improve what you cannot measure.
Yeah, exactly.
or the almost otherworldly methods of physicist, engineer, and artist Kitty Young, who joined us for episode 12 and described her method for gauging her own level of understanding new concepts.
I actually found that is a way for me to test if I understand anything. So I try to conceptualize and visualize scientific ideas through drawings. If I cannot draw something, that means I don't understand it. For someone to understand something, we have to be able to translate equations with words and visualize the words with drawings and condense and explain the drawings with equations. So the three things go around and complement each other. If there's anything that I can't do with any one of these, then it really means I don't totally understand it.
We're taking some time off to prepare for our next season coming out in January, but stay tuned because in the meantime, we'll be releasing tons of bonus content. We hope you'll use this time to revisit some of the episodes we highlighted today. If you have questions or comments about any of our past guests or topics, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email to BOM@supplyframe.com, and please rate and review so more people can enjoy our show. That's it for now. For all you aspiring and active entrepreneurs out there, I'll leave you with this great advice from Kate McAndrew.
One of the things to remember too is that the project of founding something is not the same thing as being the best individual contributor. Your number one job as a leader is to, build products and to galvanize teams that you can be proud of, that people want to get behind, right? Because it's about getting that snowball going, right? It's about getting that momentum. I think the thing to remember is that if you have the vision and you have the drive and that unquestionable kind of like, I'm going to do this no matter what, that is the thing that you need, right? And then your project is to find your people. And there are a lot of investors out there, don't spend time with those that aren't your people. Find your people. Don't try and turn a no to a yes. You won't. Just go find your yeses.
If you like The Bomb, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share the show wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow SupplyFrame and Hackaday on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and Design Lab at SupplyFrame Design Lab on Instagram and Twitter. The Bomb is a SupplyFrame podcast written, produced, and edited by Frank Driscoll and co-edited by Daniel Ferreira. Executive producers are Ryan Tillotson and Tyler Nielsen. Theme music is by Anna Hogbin with show art by Thomas Schneider. Special thanks to Giovanni Salinas, Bruce Dominguez, Thomas Woodward, Jin Kumar, Jordan Clark, Matt Gunn, the entire SupplyFrame team, and you, our wonderful listeners. I'm your host, Magenta Strongheart.